The slap echoed across Lennox Avenue like a gunshot. September 14, 1931, 2:47 p.m. Officer Patrick O'Reilly's hand connected with the face of Margaret Johnson, a 58-year-old woman walking home from church. The sound cut through the afternoon air. Sharp, violent, deliberate. The street stopped. Vendors froze. Musicians went silent. 2,000 people watched a white cop humiliate a black mother in the middle of Harlem, a woman in a Sunday dress, a woman carrying a Bible, a woman who'd done nothing except exist on a sidewalk that O'Reilly considered his personal kingdom, and 2,000 people watched her son Bumpy Johnson do nothing. He didn't swing, didn't shout, didn't even move. He just stood there 6 feet away, watching her stumble backward from the blow, watching her hand go to her face, watching tears well up in her eyes, not from pain, from humiliation, from knowing her son couldn't protect her because the man who'd struck her wore a badge. Bumpy's face showed nothing, but his eyes, witnesses would later say they'd never seen eyes like that, cold, empty, like staring into a well with no bottom. O'Reilly laughed, a booming laugh that echoed off the brownstones. He twirled his nightstick and looked directly at Bumpy. "What are you gonna do about it, boy? Call the police?" He laughed again. "Oh, wait, I am the police." Then he walked away, slow, casual, like a man who owned the world. Officer Patrick O'Reilly had 72 hours left to live. He just didn't know it yet. Patrick O'Reilly wasn't just any cop. He was the 28th Precinct's muscle, the enforcer, the man they sent when they wanted someone hurt, not arrested. For 11 years, he'd built a reputation that made grown men cross the street when they saw him coming. O'Reilly collected protection money from black-owned businesses. You paid or your shop burned down. He shook down numbers runners, keeping half their earnings and arresting them anyway. He'd beaten at least a dozen men so badly they ended up at Harlem Hospital. Not one of those beatings resulted in disciplinary action. Why? Because O'Reilly had friends. The precinct captain was his wife's cousin. The Irish mob protected him because O'Reilly was useful. He kept Harlem scared. He kept black criminals in check. He was the boot on the neck, and O'Reilly knew it. He walked through Harlem like a king, knowing that no one could touch him. Not the community, not the law, no one. That Tuesday afternoon, O'Reilly was in a foul mood. He'd lost money betting on boxing. His captain had chewed him out for showing up drunk, and here was this elderly black woman walking too slow, blocking his path. "Move," O'Reilly barked. Margaret Johnson was 58 years old. Born in Charleston, South Carolina in 1873, she'd survived Jim Crow. She'd survived poverty. She'd learned, like all black people in America, to keep her head down around white authority. So when O'Reilly told her to move, she said yes sir and tried to step aside. But she wasn't fast enough for O'Reilly's anger. That's when his hand came up. That's when the slap echoed across Lennox Avenue. That's when everything changed. Bumpy Johnson was 24 years old in September 1931. He'd done 2 prison terms. He ran policy banks. He protected local businesses from white gangsters. He was becoming someone important in Harlem's underworld. But standing there watching a cop slap his mother, Bumpy wasn't a gangster. He was just a son. Helpless. Frozen. Trapped by the same impossible math that trapped every black person in America. Fight back against a white cop and die. O'Reilly had a gun. O'Reilly had a badge. O'Reilly had the entire NYPD behind him. If Bumpy swung even once, O'Reilly would shoot him dead and call it justified self-defense. The newspapers wouldn't even question it. So Bumpy stood there, hands clenched into fists so tight his knuckles went white, jaw locked, breathing shallow. Stood there while his mother touched her face. Stood there while O'Reilly laughed. Stood there while 200 people watched him fail to protect the woman who'd protected him. His entire life. The silence was absolute. Then O'Reilly spoke. "That's what I thought. You coloreds are all the same. Tough when you're stealing from each other. But put a real man in front of you," he tapped his badge, "and you remember your place." He spit on the sidewalk near Margaret's feet. "Tell your boy to stay out of trouble, Mammy. Next time it won't be just a slap." Then he walked away whistling. Bumpy didn't move for a full minute after O'Reilly left. The crowd stayed silent. Nobody knew what to say. The humiliation was too profound. Finally, Bumpy walked to his mother, took her arm gently. "Let's go home, Mama." Margaret looked up at her son, saw the expression on his face, and she knew. She'd seen that look before. When Bumpy was 14 and a white shopkeeper had cheated him. When he was 19 and a prison guard had beaten him. When he was 22 and a rival gangster had disrespected him. That look meant someone was going to pay. Ellsworth, she said softly, using his real name. Don't do anything foolish. That man has the law on his side. Bumpy didn't respond, just walked her home in silence. But everyone on Lennox Avenue that day would later say the same thing. Bumpy's silence was more terrifying than any threat he could have made. What happened over the next 72 hours is the stuff of legend in Harlem. Bumpy didn't act immediately. Didn't let rage make him stupid. Instead, he did what he always did. He thought, he planned, he organized. Hours 1 to 12. Bumpy made phone calls, not to criminals, but to working people, porters, waiters, shoeshine boys, people who were invisible to men like O'Reilly. People who saw everything because nobody looked at them. Within 6 hours, Bumpy knew O'Reilly's complete routine, where he lived, where he drank, when he started his shift, when he finished, where he went afterward. Hours 12 to 24, Bumpy studied O'Reilly's connections. The cousin captain, the alderman, the Irish mob protection. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about sending a message that would echo through every precinct in New York. O'Reilly bragged at the precinct that day, told his fellow officers how he'd put some colored woman in her place, laughed about the son who'd stood there like a coward. What O'Reilly didn't notice, a black janitor mopping the floor, listening, remembering, reporting back to Bumpy. Hours 24 to 48, O'Reilly started noticing things. A man reading a newspaper at the bar, who wasn't drinking. A car that seemed to follow him for 3 blocks. The feeling of being watched. His captain called him in. Patrick, I'm hearing things. That woman you slapped, her son is Bumpy Johnson. O'Reilly shrugged. So what? I slapped her. She was blocking the sidewalk. What's Johnson gonna do? Cry about it? The captain looked worried. Take a few days off. Go to Boston. Let this cool down. O'Reilly laughed. I'm not running from some colored gangster. Let him try something. I'll put a bullet in him and sleep like a baby. That was Wednesday evening, September 16th. Thursday morning, September 17th, Officer Patrick O'Reilly left his apartment at 5:47 a.m. He was walking to the subway station for his 6:00 a.m. shift. The streets were empty, pre-dawn darkness, a few street lamps casting yellow pools of light. O'Reilly never made it to the subway. What happened in those 4 blocks? Nobody knows. Not exactly. No witnesses, no struggle, no gunshots, no screams. One moment, O'Reilly was walking down West 85th Street. The next moment, he was gone. For 72 hours, Officer Patrick O'Reilly simply vanished. Friday morning, September 20th, 1931, 6:47 a.m. Exactly 72 hours after O'Reilly disappeared, Officer Thomas Murphy arrived for his morning shift at the 28th Precinct. He was walking up the front steps when he saw something that made him freeze. A man tied to the iron railing, naked except for his underwear, shivering, not from cold, from terror. Murphy got closer and his stomach dropped. It was Patrick O'Reilly. But it wasn't the O'Reilly he knew. This man's eyes were empty, glassy, staring at nothing. His lips were moving, but no sound was coming out. His body was covered in bruises. Not the kind that kill you, the kind that make you wish you were dead. And pinned to his chest, right over his heart, was a note. Handwritten. Neat letters. Respect mothers. Murphy tried to untie him. Pat, what happened? Who did this? O'Reilly's head turned slowly. His mouth opened. I'm sorry. That's all he said. Just those 2 words. Over and over. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. They cut O'Reilly loose, wrapped him in a blanket, tried to get him to talk. Patrick, who did this? Where were you? What happened? O'Reilly just stared straight ahead, lips trembling. I'm sorry. They took him to Bellevue Hospital. The doctors examined him. Physically, he was relatively unharmed. Bruises, dehydration, signs of being restrained, but no broken bones, no permanent injuries, nothing that would explain the look in his eyes. Psychologically, Officer Patrick O'Reilly was destroyed. The police psychiatrist interviewed him for 2 hours, asked him questions, tried to piece together what happened during those 72 hours. O'Reilly answered every question the same way. I'm sorry. What's your name? I'm sorry. Where were you? I'm sorry. Who did this to you? I'm sorry. It didn't matter what they asked. It didn't matter how they asked it. His mind was broken, shattered. Whatever happened in those 72 hours had erased everything except those two words. The psychiatrist report. Patient exhibits severe psychological trauma. Recommend immediate psychiatric commitment and removal from active duty. Translation. Officer O'Reilly had lost his mind. The NYPD went insane. They raided every Harlem establishment. They brought in every known criminal for questioning. They offered immunity, money, anything for information about what happened to O'Reilly. Nothing. Nobody talked. Nobody knew anything. And the few people who might have known, they looked the investigators dead in the eye and said, "I don't know what you're talking about." The NYPD knew who was responsible. Everyone knew. Bumpy Johnson. But they couldn't prove it. Bumpy had an alibi for all 72 hours. He'd been visiting his sick aunt in New Jersey. A dozen witnesses confirmed it. His known associates? All accounted for. All with alibis. All clean. The investigation dragged on for months. Then it was quietly closed. Officially, unsolved assault and kidnapping. Unofficially, don't ever talk about this again. Officer Patrick O'Reilly never returned to duty. He was medically retired in December 1931, given a pension, given psychiatric care. But nothing helped. He spent the rest of his life in mental institutions. His wife left him. His friends abandoned him. He became a ghost. Technically alive, but not really living. And for the next 37 years until his death in 1968, Patrick O'Reilly only said two words: "I'm sorry," to nurses, to doctors, to visitors, to the walls, to himself. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry." The other cops at the 28th precinct got the message loud and clear. What Bumpy Johnson did to O'Reilly was worse than killing him. Death would have been mercy. Instead, Bumpy had done something so horrific, so psychologically devastating, that O'Reilly's mind couldn't survive it. And the beautiful part? There was no evidence. No body. No crime scene. Just a broken man tied to a railing with a note that said, "Respect mothers." The precinct changed after that. Cops still collected their taxes, still shook down businesses, but they stopped slapping people. They stopped the casual brutality, because O'Reilly's empty desk was a daily reminder. You can survive a bullet. You can't survive what Bumpy Johnson does to your mind. In Harlem, they don't tell this story to scare children. They tell it to teach respect. They tell it to remind people that some lines can't be crossed, that mothers are sacred, that badges don't make you invincible. And they tell it to remember Bumpy Johnson, the man who proved that real power isn't about violence. It's about precision. It's about sending a message so clear, so devastating, that it echoes for generations. Officer O'Reilly thought he could slap a black woman in broad daylight and walk away laughing. He was wrong. 72 hours later, he was found naked and insane, apologizing to ghosts for the rest of his life. And Bumpy Johnson? He went back to protecting Harlem, back to running his operations, back to being the king, because that's what kings do. They protect their people, they punish disrespect, and they make sure the lesson is never forgotten. Respect mothers, or learn to say "I'm sorry" for the rest of your life. If this story of psychological warfare and street justice moved you, smash that subscribe button and hit the like. We're bringing you the Bumpy Johnson stories the history books won't touch. The brilliance, the strategy, the code that made him untouchable. Drop a comment below. What do you think happened in those 72 hours? The police never found out. The FBI couldn't crack it. O'Reilly never remembered. But someone in that basement knows. Someone in Harlem remembers. And the theories? They'll haunt you. Some say Bumpy locked him in a room with mirrors, forcing O'Reilly to watch himself slap that innocent woman over and over, until his mind snapped. Others whisper about psychological torture so precise, so calculated that it rewrote O'Reilly's entire identity. The only clue, that note pinned to his chest: "Respect mothers." Two words that became a commandment in every police precinct across New York. A reminder that some people, some communities, some principles are untouchable. Would you rather face a bullet or end up like O'Reilly, broken, insane, repeating the same two words for 37 years until death finally showed mercy? Hit that notification bell, because next week we're dropping the story that'll blow your mind. The night Bumpy Johnson walked into Lucky Luciano's office completely unarmed, and walked out with a handshake that changed organized crime forever. The Italian mafia called him the smartest gangster they'd ever met. You need to see why. Share this video with someone who needs to understand what real power looks like. Not violence, not brutality, but intelligence so cold, so calculated that it can break a man's mind without laying a finger on him. This is the untold history of Harlem's godfather, the man who proved that sometimes the most dangerous weapon isn't a gun or a knife. It's knowing exactly how to destroy someone's soul without leaving a single fingerprint. Think about it. In 1931, Bumpy Johnson did what the civil rights movement, the NAACP, and decades of protest couldn't do. He made a racist cop disappear, not through violence, but through pure psychological warfare. He turned the system's own brutality against itself. And that message? It's still echoing today. Every time someone stands up to injustice, every time someone protects the defenseless, every time someone proves that real power comes from the mind, not the muscle. Officer Patrick O'Reilly slapped the wrong mother. He humiliated the wrong son. He crossed the wrong line in the wrong neighborhood at the wrong time. And he spent the rest of his life paying for it. Remember, Harlem didn't need superheroes. They had Bumpy Johnson. And Bumpy Johnson's revenge wasn't murder. It was something far worse. It was mercy. The kind of mercy that leaves you begging for death.